This will probably be the last video I upload for a good 2 to 3 days. I'm going away with Mrs. Gossip for New Year's and for a little bit of a break before getting back to work. But I wanted to do a quick discussion about two pieces of news that broke in the last 24 to 48 hours, both of which involve sort of the economics and finance within British boxing. I guess the first news report that came through is that Tyson Fury versus Vladimir Klitschko, the rematch, is on, which we have always suspected, for spring 2016. Venue as yet to be confirmed. I've heard Wembley, I've heard Old Trafford. My instinct is that it'll be going back to Germany, possibly to Berlin. I think that there'll be more money put up in a purse bid scenario. Not that it will necessarily go to purse bids, but I think a larger offer will come through from the K2 side of things. Probably a bigger offer will come from their side to host a fight, rather than Money McHenessy himself will be able to pick up. And it wouldn't surprise me if, as part of that financial bargain, the Furies will go to Germany again. I don't think they'd be unwilling to travel, having got the decision there last time. Obviously the Furies would want more control over the ring canvas, the gloves and that side of things, but potentially they'd be happy to go out there if there was a fair and proper trade-off with the finances and those parts. But as part of this, one thing that was announced is that no UK broadcaster had been agreed, and that the rights would be sold, put simply, to the highest bidder. Now, I was wondering who the highest bidder is going to be here. We know Anthony Joshua versus Dillian Whyte did somewhere between 400,000 and 450,000 pay-per-view sales on Sky pay-per-view. Now, at the same time, I believe I heard Eddie Hearn say in an interview with IFL TV that this was only slightly less than Tyson Fury versus Vladimir Klitschko. So let's say, as a ballpark figure, Tyson Fury versus Vladimir Klitschko did between 400,000 and 500,000 pay-per-view buys. And I think it was at £17 a go. But let's be conservative. Let's call it £15 a go. And let's call it 450,000 pay-per-view buys. I'm going to work this out without a calculator, so forgive me if my maths isn't my strong suit, but 450,000 times by 15, I believe works out at 6.75 million. So you're looking at around 7 million that's generated from pay-per-view buys. So if Sky know that they're going to be able to do those sort of numbers on their platform, they will be able to put in a very, very, very sizable bid in order to once again be the broadcaster for this fight. However, Boxnation, as we now know, have the ability to do Boxnation pay-per-views via Sky Box Office. They won't be promoted by Sky Sports. They won't be on the Sky Sports formats with the Sky Sports presenters and commentators. But nevertheless, Boxnation now have that facility and now have the ability to put on those pay-per-views via the red button on your Sky remotes. So that's a real interesting development. You see, the way I look at it with Sky is, and I was discussing this with my good friend who hosts the Ultratech Sport channel the other day, is that Sky are struggling as a company because of BT Sport making them overbid so massively for the football coverage. And this is something that Ultratech Sport was highlighting when we were speaking, and he's mentioned that a few times on his channel. And he's right, it's something Frank Warren has brought up again and again. But because they've had to overbid so much to secure the football rights, as that essentially is their business, they're now looking to make profit out of other avenues such as the boxing. That's why they're so keen on pushing the pay-per-view model over and over again. I think Boxnation are perhaps in a position, don't get me wrong, Boxnation aren't as big a business as Sky, they're not as financially sound as Sky, but potentially they could be in a position to make an investment, to have a loss leader, if you like. Could Boxnation see the figures that Sky were able to obtain when they did Fury versus Klitschko the first time round? And could they put in a truly massive bid in order to secure this event on Boxnation pay-per-view via Sky Box Office, in order to try and upset the apple cart there, and in order to build their brand and to really launch Boxnation pay-per-view? And we know Boxnation pay-per-view is coming, but what a way it would be to introduce it if the first ever pay-per-view was Klitschko Tyson Fury. I mean, surely that would launch it on such a scale that it would advertise Boxnation pay-per-view and, serve a dual purpose for the channel. I guess the other thing to factor in is I read an article a long time ago, and I forget the source now, so if you remember what I'm referring to, please do leave a link to it in the comments. But I read an article in a major newspaper, I forget which newspaper, which seemed to suggest that it broke down the economics of Froxgrove's 2 at Wembley and how much money that made. And it seemed to suggest that Sky Sports took 50% of the pay-per-view revenue that Matchroom created for Froxgroves. Now, I'm not sure how it would work for Boxnation if Boxnation were doing a Sky Box Office pay-per-view, not sort of promoted and not shown by Sky Sports. But I've read other sources saying that it would be as low as 15% that they would have to pay to Sky Box Office, or Sky Distribution as I believe they're called. So what I'm getting at is, would potentially Boxnation have, and I don't know the answer to this, I'm interested if someone can provide clarity, would Boxnation be able to release more revenue because they'd actually have to pay less to their partners? I mean, I know, for example, it looks like if Sky Sports put it on, they'd have to give Eddie Hearn a cut, So what I'm getting at is that relationship counterintuitive there? With Boxnation actually have a little bit more to play with, as they're paying less of a tax, if that makes sense. I don't know if I've explained that well at all, probably not, but my point is, does the Sky and Matchroom exclusivity deal, where both parties have to have a cut, does that negatively affect an event like Fury Klitschko? Because it means there's less room for profit, because they've got to sort out both businesses, whereas is the Boxnation model a smoother, cleaner model? The fact that they've got that degree of separation, I don't know, but I think there is scope that Boxnation could put on a big pay-per-view, and this would be one heck of a fight to launch their pay-per-view model. This is, as I say, can they afford to view this as an investment and a loss leader to advertise Boxnation pay-per-view and to build out that brand? Possibly. I'm not sure Sky are in a position where they're able to do that, you see, because of the Premier League situation where they've had to overbid and spend so much money on the football. I think it's more about the pure profit for them at this stage. Whereas I think there are dual benefits to Boxnation bidding for this. So that's interesting. This news comes at the same time where I've seen on numerous sources, including the Express newspaper, that Anthony Joshua was able to obtain £3 million for his win against Dillian Whyte. Now, it's been rumoured that Dillian Whyte got £500,000 for that fight, so it's massive paydays for both. I mean, Dillian Whyte, you'd have to assume his biggest payday previously would have been, somewhere between 5 and 20 grand. I mean, I don't see Dillian Whyte being in any fights prior to this matchup where he'd have been paid, 50 grand or 100 grand. I don't see him being involved in the magnitude of fight to obtain that finance. Yet, it's rumoured he got £500,000 for that fight. I mean, that rumour is made more believable given the fact that it's been reported in the Express that Anthony Joshua got paid £3 million for his fight. £3 million for a vacant British title. Crazy money. And I guess that shows, what the value of a Sky Sports pay-per-view can be to a fighter. I understand that as part of Anthony Joshua's 5-year extension to Matchroom, he gets a cut of pay-per-view revenue, which is obviously hugely beneficial for him. Obviously, Eddie Hearn's done that as a sort of retention tool to mean he's less inclined to speak to Al Heyman in the States and other promoters. But it really is crazy money for Joshua. Even at this early stage of his career, he's able to get $3 million from a fight. If you break down the economics of it, though, it is foreseeable. I mean, if it did 450,000 buys at £15 a go, as we've already discussed, that's best part of $7 million. And then let's say it sold, 20,000 tickets at the O2 at, 50 quid a go. That's another, another £1 million there? That's not even including sort of advertising revenue and sponsorship and, all of those sort of things. So I guess foreseeably he could have earned £3 million from it, especially if his contract gives him a cut of that pay-per-view revenue. That would sort of add up to a sort of fight purse plus the cut of the revenue. But, huge payday for him. And for fighters like Chris Eubank Jr., for fighters like Kell Brook, seeing that is going to act as a retention tool for those guys to want to work with Eddie Hearn. Because, if they're seeing Joshua being paid like that for a British title fight, then they want to be built into that pay-per-view star that he already is. I mean, whether you think that fight was pay-per-view or not, the fact that it sold as much as it did highlights that the public as a whole are happy to pay pay-per-view for Anthony Joshua fights. I wonder if the two stories are linked, though. Is it any coincidence that, the story about Anthony Joshua earning £3 million for his fight with Dillian Whyte came out the day after it was announced that the rights for Fury Klitschko would be available to the highest bidder? I mean, is this Team Eddie Hearn, Team Matchroom, Team Sky making a political statement within boxing? Look how much you get paid if you're with Sky. Is this them coming out with some reaction after the well-publicised Twitter beef between Frank Warren, Hennessy Sports, Peter Fury, all sort of coming out saying that, questioning Eddie Hearn and Sky pay-per-view of late. Are they trying to make a statement here by saying to Tyson Fury and saying to Chris Eubank Jr. and saying to all those guys, Sky Sports pay-per-view is the only place to be. Look how much Anthony Joshua has already been paid. So I wonder if the two are somewhat linked. I wonder if this message about Joshua's purse coming out now is them trying to make a statement. And it'd be interesting to see. But for me, it's always interesting to understand the financial mechanics that goes on behind the sport. And I'm not saying that I do fully understand them, but I think these are two relevant things. If Anthony Joshua is being paid £3 million to fight for a vacant British title, that does send a message to young British fighters, the likes of Fury, the likes of Chris Eubank Jr., even the likes of returning David Haye, that Sky pay-per-view is the place to be for now. But if Boxnation pull a joker out of the pack and can somehow pull out a bid to win the rights to Fury Klitschko and launch that as Boxnation pay-per-view, could they really upset the apple cart here? Could they take a hit and make an investment in the advertising that this would bring for their channel and try and win the rights here? Interesting times. As a boxing fan, I'm loving it. I can't wait to see what happens next. There's a lot of politics, a lot of drama, and it's really interesting from a fan perspective to see the mechanics behind the sport. Let me know your thoughts. If you've enjoyed this video, do give me a thumbs up. I'll try and do a follow-up to this video, so please do subscribe to the channel if you'd be interested in hearing that. Thanks for watching.